Strategy with Dr. M. Stolard podcast do want to send out special prayers to the families of those that were lost in OceanGate. The OceanGate failure that took place resulted in the loss of 5 individuals. And so, regardless of what you may think about them or how much money they have or didn't have, 5 souls were lost. And it's an unfortunate situation. So we just want to take a moment to recognize, their family, their friends, those who knew them intimately, just to recognize and just say, I'm sorry for your loss. This is going to be part of the series, Your Brand Strategy in a Crisis. This is something that we want to take a look at from a brand strategy standpoint. When we say take a look at it, you have people who have to still run the business. So, like I said, we want to discuss this from a brand strategy viewpoint, as we tend to do, but specifically, we want to use OceanGate as the area of focus. It's in my opinion that they are in a brand crisis. If there ever was one, it's important to understand that, first it's important to understand who their audience is, right? And so you want to use this for yourself to understand who your audience is, right? But from their span, we'll look at who their audience is, right? So it's important to understand that their audience were those who would be considered truly affluent, right? Truly affluent. And we know this because, to take a ride in that particular submarine is about $250,000 per person. That was the cost, give or take, right? And so you see people in the news and so forth who had turned it down and things of that nature, but people who are turning it down or CEOs, people of a certain level of influence. And this is important, right? Because these are the people who their audience is, right? So again, this will be part of the series, Your Brand Strategy in a Crisis. And so we're going to look at it from a perspective of, I want to keep it to essentially present maybe 8 key options for them to consider, right? And for you to consider if you were in their shoes. We believe this is going to be helpful to you. So welcome to Strategy with Dr. M. Stolard. This series is entitled Your Brand Strategy in a Crisis. I think this is episode like 15 or so. Episode 15. Sometimes I mess up because I have the series and then I have ones that are not necessarily part of the series that are also episodes. So pray for a little bit of grace when it comes to that. So those of you who follow up, we pray and hope that you never have to be in this kind of situation, but it's important to really to recognize and to understand that we'll look at this, the experts I tend to discuss, you may hear me mention often, was, that work directly with crisis management, Dr. Erica James, Dr. Lynn Perry Wooden, the author of The Prepared Leader. There's Harvard professor, Dr. Dutch Leonard, Judy Smith. They all say pretty confidently when it comes to a crisis within any organization, that a crisis is literally just around the corner. So if you operate in think you're never going to be in a crisis, especially when you get to a certain level of income and a certain level of revenue, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You're not being truthful to yourself. So, so you want to make sure you are prepared, right? Hence the name of the book that I was discussing last, Prepared Leader. So this is going to help you do just that, right? So allow me to give you a little bit of background, So OceanGate, right? If you go to the website now, chances are it's probably down, right? However, OceanGate is a private company that has what they call submersibles, right? So submersibles or submarines, we call them submarines for the layman's terms, but they're called submersibles. This is their particular product, and this is their service, okay? And they provide to individuals to do scientific research and exploration within the water, specifically the ocean, and for the most part, they tend to go down deep, right? Deep into the water. There's other companies that would be to consider their competition, and I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, you're starting to see even ads for that across social media and so forth, where they will take you down, but not as deep, right? And so the founder of OceanGate, Mr. Stockton Rush, he was also one of the individuals who were lost, right? Um, this puts the organization in a precarious position because along with the crisis of the failure, there is also a crisis of leadership. In this case, a missing one, right? And missing one meaning a person's not going to return. And I don't say it to be crass. I'm just saying that this is when it comes to business, you have to be forthcoming with information, right? And so just so we're clear, we're trying to focus on the brand strategy component so that we can make sure that our goals and our agenda are aligned with that. And the reason why we look at that for lots of reasons. One is, I've said this time and time again, when it's time to do changes, marketing is usually the first thing that gets kicked to the side, right? But right now, if you're in the middle of a brand crisis, this is where you want to focus your efforts. So according to OceanGate, the website, their company was founded in 2009. It's a private company based out of Everett, Washington. The organization made what is called submersibles, which is essentially like a boat or a ship designed to do exploration underwater in the ocean, right? So even though you call it a boat, it's underneath it. It goes underneath the water, right? So to date, they have done about 200 dives made between, they have 3 ships, right? So the OceanGate designed to submerge as low as 13,000 feet. That's about the maximum they're supposed to do. And that's about, quote unquote, where the distress may have happened, right? Because they maxed out. And, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in a particular area, but we do know that when you're talking about any type of business, so if you are going to push your organization, push the individuals, push your product to the point where they're always at the max, that creates an issue. A simple version of that, when I used to work at a hotel, one of the things that my manager used to tell me is that, you don't want to have 100% occupancy if you can't help it, right? You'd rather have 85% occupancy. But what you do is you potentially charge more so that it's less strain on the individuals who are working in the hotel, right? If it's less strain, that means there's less strain, people are not stressed out and so forth. And you can potentially take care of all the individuals in the hotel. But if you're at 100% occupancy all the time, that means you're overworking itself. You're overworking. You're at the max, right? So think of it like, if you're at a balloon and you're blowing as much air as possible till it stretches. At some point in time, it's going to burst. And this is a layman's term of basically what seemed to have happened. So when it comes to business, you want to make sure that you are operating at a place where you're not really overworked and not overly stressed. So my suggestions on how you may want to handle this particular situation, right? And we're talking about the fact that OceanGate is in a brand crisis. So the number 2 and the board of directors have to decide what they're going to do next, right? So one, you may choose to disappear for a year, right? Offer no response. You can offer no rebuttal. This could allow your organizations to hopefully move on with the next changing news cycle. So you don't have to be at the front of the news cycle, right? This can be an effective brand strategy. But usually it's not well received, right? Especially from those who have to be in the decision chair. But in most cases, organizations want to do something. But an option would be to literally just disappear for a year and just say, you know what, we don't want to talk to anybody. We don't want to do any public speaking. You don't want to comment on anything. We're just going to hopefully let it ride. And then in a week or two, maybe it will, the news cycle will be on to focus on something else. That is option 1 for them. Number 2, if you're the one left holding the bag, so to speak, establishing a repurpose for the organization. This is sometimes necessary when a crisis is truly serious. This allows organization to begin to separate itself from, the current incident that's happening, in a sense, the Titanic incident, the incident of failure. You could use, you can essentially use the same tools, same products, but change the purpose and the intention of what it's used for, right? So you can take that same submersible and say, you know what, we're not even going to go that deep. We're not even going to go that deep. It could be an organization that strictly teaches about ocean life, maybe, right? You use these tools to teach college students, and maybe you run it out to a university so you can teach about ocean life, right? You can do more frequent flights that are less dangerous, right? Maybe even use it to visit and see, to watch certain animals, right? There's a thing that supposedly if you go, say, a few thousand feet deep, you'll see certain whales or other types of animals, maybe some certain squid and so forth, and that won't put as much stress on the vehicle, right? And then you don't feel like you're pushing to maximum capacity, right? So again, establish and repurpose for the organization. That's the second option. Number three, the next option would be you can rename the organization completely. A rename, a rebranding. Part of the rebranding could be just to rename the organization. Continue to work in the same kind of service. This would be something like ValueJet did. It had to do. I think it was in the mid-90s, right? The ValueJet was an organization that had a serious crisis, right? When one of the planes had an accident. It was in the Florida Everglades. It killed over 110 people. Everyone on board died, right? And that's definitely unfortunate. And so, they at the time were in the midst of a brand crisis. And their strategy involved renaming the company completely, right? They renamed it to AirTran, right? And then later on, it was acquired by Southwest. So again, a complete rename is another viable brand strategy for them. Why would Southwest buy purchase a company like that? Well, numerous reasons, right? But one of them would be the database, right? Access to potential travelers. There's a reason why a certain number of people were traveling on AirTran or on ValueJet, right? And if Southwest is the competition, if Southwest and AirTran are competition, or if AirTran / ValueJet is competing against Southwest, and Southwest says, you know what, if you buy that, we can get a whole new crop of potential flyers. That's why a company would choose to purchase that organization. So remember, a brand strategy is a specific plan of action designed to build the reputation, of an organization, of a product or a service. Sometimes, you're going to do a rebuild, sometimes you're going to do a rebuild or reposition itself, right? To intentionally change the direction, intentionally change the perception of your organization. Number four, my suggestion, pertains specifically to the brand strategy option would be to sell the company completely. That means Mr. Bob Schumann, Doug Gorder, Scott Griffith, the board of directors would need to start putting things in order to make this happen and just say, you know what, we're getting out of this business. We're going to sell it completely, right? And that's what AirTran ended up doing. Number five, the fifth option, which be to sound like a fifth option would be to establish a foundation. Right. And it sounds like a given, right? But sometimes you got to tell people certain things, right? So establish a foundation on behalf of the people that had passed, right? Again, one of the individuals was the CEO of the company. So in order to be truly effective, you want to ask the families, what would they like to see? What would they like to do? I remember someone close to me had passed, and it's unfortunate. One of the things they talked to her parents and say, hey, we wanted to open up this particular funding or scholarship in her name on behalf of this organization. Are you okay with that? Right? Most chances are they're probably going to be okay, but you don't want to do something without their permission because you want to make sure that the family's on board and supportive, right? Sometimes an effective brand strategy involves doing something specific for those who are in need, right? Specific for those who are in need. And with that note, another option, this would be number 6, would be to do more community service as an organization, right? It's great when folks do something good for the community when no one is looking, but right now, folks are looking. So OceanGate could choose to do more public community service. They can focus on doing more for the environment specifically. That could be their niche. That could be their area of focus. Right. Number 7, if OceanGate chose to stay in business, as is, then you would want to make sure you think about a few different things. Okay. So again, so this is number 7. If OceanGate chose to stay in business as is, then you would probably want to do what a lot of organizations would do when face this kind of situation, right? Face this kind of a brand crisis. Choose new leadership, right? Is the number 2? I think his name is Bob Sherman. Is he in a position to come up, to bump up? And if not, do we need to get somebody totally different, an external position? It just kind of depends, they have to anyway can think about the fact of the current CEO is no longer with us, and they have to make a decision anyway, right? So this is not something that you're saying out of callousness. It's just what the truth is, right? So there was a movie called We Are Marshall. It starred Matthew McConaughey, Matthew Fox, Anthony Mackie. The short version was it was about true story from what I understand. Matthew McConaughey was the new football coach for, I think it was a high school team or a college team. I'm not even quite sure. The team had previously died the year before, right? So they called Matthew McConaughey's character in to say, hey, you know what? We need somebody to kind of be new leadership, but you need somebody with some energy, right? That's going to be able to go against the grain, because sometimes people may not be on board. People want to continue to mourn. There's nothing wrong with continuing to mourn. It's just that if you are running a business, you have to be able to move forward. And you have to decide who's going to take that on, they have to. So you can do a couple things with that. You can consider. But see, whenever there's new leadership, though, you don't want to do it haphazardly. You want to make an announcement. You want to let people know, your clients and customers know, your staff know that new leadership is coming. That new leadership will be taking helm at a certain time, and then hopefully we have some support. Maybe the top of the next quarter. This can help to change the direction and to begin taking the stink off of the organization. I hate to use that word, but that's just what's happening, right? And number 8, my last suggestion would be do a complete facelift, right? This could look in different ways. This could get outside help, a consultant, not a PR person, but maybe not just a PR person, but a consultant to help them to navigate the brand strategy aspect of it to moving forward, right? So one thing to talk to the publicly, and that's what PR can definitely help you with that. But internally, you have to decide how you're going to navigate, how you're going to move forward. You can revamp the website completely. That could be an option. Merge with another organization. Do some joint projects, right? So that is an option as well. OceanGate, can choose to do a number of these options, right? So a year from now, regardless of the direction that has been chosen, you definitely need to do a brand audit, right? An improvement check, and determine, where are you? Where is OceanGate at this particular point? So what are your thoughts on this? Send me an email, make a post down below. Thank you for listening to Strategy with Dr. M. Stolard. That's all I have for today. Just remember, I am Dr. M. Stolard, and remember to keep pushing forward, to drive your influence, and be intentional by using strategy.